It was 3:15 a.m. in Tennessee when federal agents surrounded the mansion of Hassan Ali Muhammad and Amina Abdullahi Ibrahim. The house was huge and silent, sitting in the dark like something waiting to breathe. Then the command was given. Flashbangs exploded, shaking the windows. FBI agents moved through the halls, their lights cutting through the cold air. Inside the basement, the scene turned deeply disturbing. Agents opened a steel door and found 2 Glock pistols, boxes of ammunition, and bags of cash stacked like bricks, more than $6 million. Next to them were heavy blocks of gold wrapped in cloth. But the most shocking discovery was a large industrial freezer. When agents broke the lock and opened it, a suitcase sat inside. And inside that suitcase was the frozen body of a man, folded unnaturally, his face bruised and lifeless. The mansion was no home. It was a killing place. If you want the truth behind what happened to the missing agent, hit like and comment yes, so this story reaches more people. 4 months before the raid, CIA agent Ethan Carter, 47, vanished without a trace. He was a calm, disciplined man, known for never missing a call, never breaking routine. At the time, he was tracking a dangerous fentanyl route tied to the CJNG cartel, a case he had spent years building piece by piece. His colleagues later said he looked tired but determined, as if he finally understood something no one else could see. 3 days before he disappeared, Ethan contacted his supervisor with a chilling message. "I found it, the missing link." It was the last time anyone heard his voice. When agents entered Ethan's home, they found signs of a violent struggle. A lamp shattered, blood droplets on the carpet, his laptop smashed, its hard drive ripped out. His case files, especially those involving Tennessee, were gone. The only clues he left behind were a few handwritten notes mentioning 2 names, Hassan Ali Muhammad and Amina Abdullahi Ibrahim. At first, investigators didn't believe it. Hassan and Amina were respected detectives in the Tennessee police force, but every lead, every timeline, and every phone record pointed straight at them. Ethan hadn't simply vanished. He had walked directly into the truth, and the truth had swallowed him whole. Comment, find the truth, if you believe Ethan's disappearance was no accident. As federal investigators began pulling the case apart, the true identities of Hassan Ali Muhammad and Amina Abdullahi Ibrahim came into focus, and the reality was far worse than expected. For years, they were respected Tennessee detectives. In secret, they were operating a narcotics enterprise valued at more than $128 million. Evidence seized from their mansion revealed a tightly controlled partnership. Hassan handled movement, coordinating over 300 undocumented cargo transfers across multiple states, shipments that moved with the confidence of police protection. Amina controlled the chemical supply, overseeing more than 100 precursor deliveries, all concealed behind forged lab orders and officially approved transport routes. Their badges became tools of concealment. At least 40 internal alerts quietly disappeared. Nearly 20 traffic stops linked to their routes were cleared without explanation. With direct access to law enforcement databases, they monitored investigations in real time, adjusting their operations before any threat reached them. The scale stunned federal agencies. The network stretched across 8 states, feeding enough material to flood the streets with tens of millions of counterfeit pills. This was not a cartel hiding from police. It was a cartel hiding inside the police. Ethan Carter found the pattern. He followed the numbers, and those numbers sealed his fate. Tap like if you believe no one wearing a badge should ever be above the law. The raid on the mansion did not close the case. It blew it wide open. Within hours of opening the industrial freezer and confirming the brutality inside, federal agencies realized they weren't dealing with a single corrupt couple. They were staring at the doorway into a much larger, much older criminal pipeline. For years, fragmented intelligence hinted that a small group of a covert network, scattered across police departments, trucking companies, warehouse hubs, and port facilities, were quietly enabling the spread of fentanyl and methamphetamine across America's heartland. But no investigation had ever connected the threads, not until the bodies, money, and chemicals found in Tennessee forced Washington to see the whole map. At 6:40 a.m., as the sun began to rise, the Department of Homeland Security activated a national emergency protocol. The name of the new offensive was simple and stark: Operation Black Dune. It would become the largest immigration-linked criminal sweep in modern U.S. history. By 8 a.m., field offices in 17 states received synchronized orders. Nearly 2,400 federal personnel, FBI, DHS, ICE, U.S. Marshals, and special task forces were deployed. Their targets were not random immigrants, but specific individuals flagged by months of intelligence, people with falsified identities, criminal connections, unexplained financial movements, or direct contact with the Tennessee detective couple. The first wave hit Nashville, Columbus, Minneapolis, and Seattle, cities where Somali communities had grown rapidly in recent years. Convoys of armored vehicles moved before dawn, their engines low and deliberate. Helicopters circled over residential complexes, lighting rooftops with wide beams. Agents knocked on doors in some locations and breached others with battering tools when residents refused to comply. The goal was clear: secure suspects before networks could scatter. Within the first 12 hours, the operation produced staggering numbers. 620 individuals were taken into federal custody. 51 properties linked to fraudulent documents, money laundering, or chemical storage were seized. 312 non-citizens were placed into expedited removal after agents uncovered fake passports, altered visas, or fabricated police credentials. In Tennessee alone, 14 law enforcement officers were suspended or arrested pending investigation for ties to the couple's trafficking routes. But the most dramatic confrontations unfolded in Minneapolis, where a cluster of suspects barricaded themselves inside a 3-story apartment building. After a tense standoff, negotiators evacuated families while tactical teams breached the rear entrance. Inside, agents found encrypted laptops, burner phones, and shipping manifests connecting back to the same chemical supply chain Hassan and Amina had helped run. Washington officials later admitted privately that they'd never expected the network to reach this deep. It was not merely criminal infiltration. It was a quiet occupation of critical positions, slowly eroding the nation from within. The discovery terrified policymakers and galvanized the public. Operation Black Dune was no longer about immigration status. It was about national survival and the desperate fight to close every door the cartel had managed to slip through. Comment, expose them if you want every layer of this network uncovered. The deeper agents pushed into the aftermath of the Tennessee raid, the clearer it became that the mansion was only the entry point, a doorway into a vast criminal machine hidden in plain sight. When federal analysts gathered the evidence recovered from the property, they realized they weren't looking at souvenirs from a crime scene. They were staring at the archives of an empire. Inside a secure FBI facility in Quantico, technicians laid out the materials one by one. The table grew longer by the hour. First came the 9 encrypted hard drives, each sealed with military-level protection. Breaking into them took 2 full days, and when the data finally opened, agents expected scattered files or personal records. Instead, they uncovered a meticulously organized command system, directories labeled by dates, supply routes, and coded initials. Every folder told a story: orders, payments, drop locations, and even disputes over profit shares. The drives contained over 3,000 crypto transactions, totaling $18.4 million, routed through servers in Turkey, Kenya, and the UAE. Each movement was masked behind shifting digital wallets that changed every 11 minutes, making the entire trail nearly invisible without federal-level tracing power. Investigators noted that Amina had maintained spreadsheets showing conversion rates, delivery times, and chemical quantities down to the gram. It was the bookkeeping of a global business, not a backyard operation. Next came the physical evidence seized from satellite locations. At a rented warehouse outside Memphis, agents found 1.7 tons of industrial chemical drums stacked behind false walls. At a storage unit in Kentucky, they discovered 3 commercial pill presses, each capable of producing 120,000 counterfeit pills per hour. Plastic bins filled with stamped molds mimicked oxycodone, Xanax, Adderall. Tablets indistinguishable from the real pharmaceutical products older Americans rely on daily. But the most chilling discovery came from a location neither Hassan nor Amina had ever put in writing. Buried inside one of the unlocked phones seized during the raid, investigators found GPS coordinates leading to a remote workshop near the Tennessee River. When teams arrived, they expected empty land or a simple shed. Instead, they entered a structure that looked partially abandoned until they opened the inner room. There, agents found a small chamber lined with soundproofing foam. On the floor stood a metal chair bolted to the concrete. Restraint straps hung from the arms. The walls bore marks, scratches, dents, and faint traces of dried blood. Nearby, a plastic crate contained electrical cables, gloves, and a handheld recorder. Forensic teams concluded the room had been used for interrogations and disappearances when members of the network threatened exposure. It was a chilling reminder that this empire did not rely only on chemistry and money, but on fear. In the corner of the chamber, under a tarp, lay a stack of folders containing photos and identification cards. These documents matched individuals who had gone missing over a period of 6 years, most of whom had been reported as unreachable, relocated, or voluntarily absent. Now investigators understood the truth. The network maintained its silence through violence, not loyalty. By the end of the week, analysts realized they had uncovered one of the largest coordinated criminal infrastructures ever embedded on U.S. soil. The vault of evidence did more than expose a trafficking ring. It revealed a parallel world operating beneath the nation's institutions, financed through crypto, powered by chemicals, and enforced through fear. Everything pointed to one conclusion. Hassan and Amina were not just participants, they were architects, and their empire had grown far deeper than anyone imagined. As investigators pieced together the final threads of the operation, a disturbing pattern emerged, one that no single agency had fully understood before the Tennessee raid. This was not merely a cartel presence inside the United States. It was a hybrid criminal model, a fusion between Somali operatives embedded in American institutions and the ruthless logistics engine of the CJNG cartel. The partnership was quiet, effective, and dangerously invisible. For years, cartel analysts believed CJNG relied exclusively on Mexican couriers, regional gangs, and corrupt transport workers. But the digital and financial data recovered from Hassan and Amina's empire revealed something entirely new: a parallel network of Somali intermediaries who specialized in exploiting weak points in American infrastructure. They were never the ones handling massive drug loads or conducting violent raids. Their power came from something far more strategic: access. The covert network infiltrated law enforcement systems positions that cartels traditionally struggled to reach. Some worked inside police departments as clerks and administrative staff. Others took jobs at ports, trucking companies, shipping depots, recycling plants, or small municipal offices where oversight was lax. None of them carried guns or drew attention. Their advantage was paperwork, system access, and the ability to move unnoticed through regulated environments. Hassan and Amina were the highest-ranking members of this hidden structure. Their police credentials allowed them to scan patrol logs, flag license plate alerts, and manipulate enforcement schedules. The couple could see when certain highways had fewer troopers on duty, when narcotics squads were tied up with unrelated arrests, and which warehouses were scheduled for inspections. With this information, CJNG shipments slipped into the country with astonishing precision. Financial analysis revealed the sheer scale of their contribution. Over a 3-year period, the Somali CJNG pipeline generated an estimated $128 million in profit. Nearly 60% of that revenue came from synthetic opioids, the rest from counterfeit pharmaceuticals and chemical precursors. The money moved through an intricate web of accounts that stretched across Kenya, Somalia, the UAE, and small community banks within the U.S. heartland. Many transactions were disguised as remittances or cultural association funds, flows that rarely triggered scrutiny. Ports in Houston, Mobile, Tampa, and Wilmington were all touched by the network. At each site, Somali workers helped redirect containers, alter manifests, or delay inspections just long enough for the right cargo to disappear. The chemicals sourced from CJNG laboratories in western Mexico were transported through mid-sized trucking companies, some legitimate, others created solely for laundering bills of lading. The supply chain was so polished that it often looked identical to lawful commerce. The human toll of this cooperation became clear when agents reviewed hospital data. Communities in the Midwest experienced a 310% spike in synthetic opioid overdoses, many traced back to pills generated from materials within this distribution line. Elderly patients searching for pain relief, young adults coping with stress, veterans struggling with chronic injury, all became victims of counterfeit medications indistinguishable from the real thing. Perhaps the most unsettling revelation was the network's long-term plan. Documents recovered from the encrypted drives showed a projected expansion into 4 new states by 2027, using more law enforcement insiders and municipal employees as gatekeepers. CJNG provided the chemicals and the violence. The hidden criminal cell provided the access, discretion, and institutional cover. It was the perfect criminal marriage, until one CIA agent got too close. Now, with the blueprint finally exposed, federal agencies understood the magnitude of what had been growing beneath them. Not a cartel, not a migrant cell, but a covert corporate-style alliance capable of weakening the nation from within. And it had taken Ethan Carter's disappearance to finally bring it into the light. When the medical examiner's report arrived on the director's desk, the room fell silent. The frozen body, pulled from the industrial freezer, was confirmed through DNA, dental analysis, and a healed shoulder fracture known only to agency doctors. There was no doubt anymore. The man murdered, folded into a suitcase, and left to freeze in the dark was CIA agent Ethan Carter. The discovery shattered the final barrier of uncertainty. Ethan had not vanished on his own, nor been taken by cartel enforcers in Mexico. He had been killed on American soil, inside the home of two detectives sworn to protect the public. For federal leadership, it was a humiliation, but also a rallying cry. What began as a missing person inquiry had evolved into a confrontation with one of the most deeply rooted criminal alliances in modern U.S. history. By the time the Tennessee evidence was consolidated, 89 additional suspects tied to the Somali CJNG hybrid network were identified across the country. Federal judges approved a sweeping series of sealed indictments, charges ranging from racketeering to murder, human transport, chemical trafficking, fraud, obstruction, and conspiracy against national security. Every agency involved understood one truth: if this network wasn't dismantled now, it would grow back stronger. The largest tactical deployment occurred in Phoenix, where a subcell attempted to flee toward the Mexico border. Surveillance drones tracked their convoy across the desert highway as U.S. Marshals and DEA units closed in. What followed was a tense nighttime pursuit, headlights weaving through the sand, radios filled with static. Agents intercepted the suspects near a dry riverbed, recovering encrypted tablets, forged IDs, and manifests connecting the Phoenix cell to Hassan and Amina's chemical routes. Meanwhile, in Minneapolis, a coordinated operation descended on 3 apartment complexes used as communication hubs. Agents found bunk rooms filled with discarded burner phones, notebooks written in code, and detailed instructions for maintaining low visibility within local institutions. 2 suspects attempted to escape by jumping between rooftops. They were captured after a foot chase that lasted almost 15 minutes. In Seattle, federal investigators uncovered a small office inside a shipping company where altered container documents were being produced. Dozens of falsified manifests lay on a table, each one representing a shipment that had bypassed inspections. The employee responsible had worked there 9 years without a single complaint on record. Every arrest, every seized laptop, every intercepted message painted a clearer picture. The network had survived because it had become part of the system itself. Removing it required not just raids, but rebuilding the very processes it had corrupted. As for Hassan and Amina, their trial became one of the most closely watched in recent memory. Prosecutors presented evidence of chemical imports, crypto laundering, interstate trafficking, and, ultimately, the murder of a U.S. intelligence officer. Jurors heard about the soundproof room, the coded financial spreadsheets, the erasing of police records, and the cold efficiency with which the couple had maintained their criminal empire. Ethan Carter's fate galvanized the verdict. His voice recordings, recovered from a repaired hard drive, were played in court. In one clip, Ethan said quietly, almost prophetically, "If I disappear, it's because I finally found what they've been hiding." The courtroom stayed silent for nearly a full minute. In the end, justice was not swift, but it was total. The network was fractured, its leadership imprisoned or awaiting trial, its finances seized, its roots exposed. For the first time in years, the supply lines feeding counterfeit pills into the Midwest showed measurable decline. Ethan Carter did not survive to see the impact of his discovery, but the nation did. And his final pursuit became the turning point that brought a hidden empire to its knees. The case that began in silence did not end quietly. What investigators uncovered inside that Tennessee mansion was not just a crime scene. It was a warning about how power, when left unchecked, can rot from the inside. Hassan Ali Mohammed and Amina Abdullahi Ibrahim did not force their way into the system. They rose within it. They earned trust. They wore badges. And then they used that trust as camouflage for destruction. Ethan Carter understood something many never see until it is too late. Criminal empires do not always arrive with violence at the door. Sometimes they arrive with credentials, paperwork, and access. They hide behind routines, reports, and authority. They exploit the belief that certain institutions are untouchable. This investigation shattered that illusion. It proved that corruption does not announce itself. It embeds, it adapts, and when no one is watching closely enough, it spreads. Quietly, efficiently, and deadly. The chemicals, the counterfeit pills, the erased records, the vanished warnings, none of it happened overnight. It happened because people assumed the system would protect itself. It didn't. But this story is not only about betrayal. It is about accountability. It is about what happens when truth is pursued relentlessly, even when the cost is high. Ethan Carter paid that price. He did not live to see the network fall, but because of his work, it did. The lesson is simple and uncomfortable. No badge, no title, no position should ever place someone beyond scrutiny. Justice does not survive on trust alone. It survives on vigilance. If this story made you pause, reflect, or question what you thought you knew, let that matter. If you believe transparency must be stronger than loyalty, hit like so more people see this story. If you believe corruption should be exposed no matter where it hides, comment truth below. And if you want us to continue uncovering what stays buried in the dark, subscribe and stay with us, because silence protects empires, and awareness is how they fall.